VLR.
Welcome to the Saturday Night Cigar Lounge.
And it is a rather warm-ish Saturday night here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex and here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. I am your host, Taylor Millard, for Saturday Night Cigar Lounge. Thanks for being here. Very happy to have y'all here after taking last week off due to the Thanksgiving holiday, and now back and live. And well, this should be fun. It should be very fun because I am very happy to welcome to the program, we're just going to get right into it, the hosts of Nerds Radio, which you can hear on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. That would be Jazz Shaw from hotair.com and Doug Mataconis from OutsideTheBeltway.com. Gentlemen, thanks for being on.
See, I was going to wait for Doug to say something. I'm always waiting for Doug to say something. Jeez, this is the story of our lives. Jeez. Glad to be here, Taylor. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I and glad to be here, yes. Perhaps we need to, go, talk beforehand or something before we do this, but I guess we should have gone alphabetically, so... these are the kind of production values you can expect from us every week.
Well, I'm very happy to have y'all on because the thing that folks don't realize about Nerds Radio is it is not your typical political show. And so, Jazz, I will turn it over to you, and then Doug, if you want to add stuff, go right ahead. Tell us a little bit about what Nerds Radio is and why it's not your typical show.
It's not your typical show because I've been on too many typical shows. I have been a guest on many shows and guest hosted on many shows. And really, if you dial across the political spectrum, and if you're going, it applies to TV too, but particularly on radio, on podcasts, it just seems like there's a bazillion podcasts out there that follow the exact same format where they're getting various talkers, opinion makers, things like that. And what was the story today and what do you think about it? And particularly if you get politicians, you get the same talking points. It's like, well, our position is, and you can talk to 30 of them from the same party. You get the exact same words, little alphabet soup spewing out of them. And if that was what we were going to do, I told Doug right in the beginning I had no interest in doing it. So we talked it over and decided there were a lot of interesting people to talk to, but I wanted to find out more about what was behind the person, not what are you going to vote on tomorrow and what's the party say about that. I'd like to know about the journey that people went on to get to where they are. And hearing back from readers at our site at Hot Air, people are curious. It's like, where did you form your opinions? How did you get here? Are you authentic? And we wanted to do something where we could go in and dig a little deeper and find out about the journey that people went on and do a little bit of a deep dive and see what it was from point A to point B and who you're getting when they're going in to vote. Where did their ideas come from? So that was kind of it.
Well, yeah, I agree, and also I mean to pick up on one word that Jazz used, and that was the authenticity. And when you have, especially if it's a politician or somebody who's running for office, And you get them on, and all they're talking about is, the latest bill they're going to introduce that will probably go nowhere in Congress, or, their platform or whatever it is. I mean, they've all got their set talking points. But, when you start asking for, the stuff behind the person, then, it's not so much you're throwing them off script. That's not necessarily the intention, but you're getting a more genuine look, I think, at who some of these people are. And, considering that we've got some, interesting people, new people in Washington and such who potentially will be joining us in the coming weeks, and more so, I guess, after the new year. I think we're going to have some very interesting conversations.
Exactly, and I don't want to make it sound like it's a gotcha program. Doug's right. We're not there to try to ambush somebody and wreck them. But by the same token, I also wouldn't mind being the people who, when politicians come out and say some, let's just say it, dumb things. If we had Ted Cruz on, and I know I'm going to just raise a lot of ire right now. If we had Ted Cruz on and he came out and said what he was saying, what was it, Doug, like a year or year and a half ago about the last government shutdown, saying, well, obviously we didn't shut the government down. I wouldn't mind being the person to go, are you kidding me? Because clearly you did, and I'm a Republican. And I don't mind saying to somebody, don't blame that on the president because you shut the government down. Like right now we have a situation coming up where if we have a unified House and Senate and they go ahead and pass something together to fund the entire government, absent a couple of things that are political in nature, and the president doesn't sign it, then I have no qualms about saying the president shut the government down. But if you're the guy who clearly did it, I think Doug and I are the ones who are going to say to you, really? Really? Is that your point?
Right. Yeah, and that's and that's the other thing is I hate to use a trite phrase like this because I think journalists on many networks use phrases like keeping them honest and stuff like that, and this isn't meant to be 60 minutes or anything like that, but genuine, I guess, is the better word, or at least as genuine as you can be, on a radio show. We're not, obviously, for the most part, not going to be looking these people in the eye. So if somebody's bald-faced lying to you, you're not necessarily going to know. But, I think by asking people to talk less about their talking points and their agenda and more about their backstory that got them to where they are, you get a better picture of the kind of people you're actually dealing with, and we don't get enough of that from the media in general, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have no and what I actually really like is that it's a conversation that y'all can have, and with people that y'all can have. I mean, the first episode is Amelia Hamilton, and I was there for the conversation, so but I thought it was really great that y'all looked at her background, how she got involved in politics. I find that stuff actually kind of interesting because I think it's something that not a lot of people look at.
I think it's like biographies. There are certain people who will read, and if you go through my bookcase at home, I have a ton of biographies, and some of them are on really obscure people. But I like learning about people's lives, and I think you actually can drill down without being harmful in the process, not a destructive process. But people who live in Washington, we often say, and I know I've heard Doug use the phrase a million times, you go to like the correspondence dinner, it's like nerd prom. The people become celebrities when they go to Washington, and it's kind of like the really phony sort of people you see in Hollywood, who go to the Oscars and things like that. And I don't think the average American relates to that, whether you're the person sitting in the theater and going to watch the movie. Well, you're watching a character, and maybe you really enjoyed the movie, but you have no idea what Jennifer Aniston is like as an actual person. She's playing a character on the screen. And we have politicians who are put in a position where, because the media watches them constantly and there's all these discussions, they become sort of caricatures, and they have to pick a spot, they have to pick a role, they have these lines they have to recite. And there's a pretty good parallel there, I think, because you might be able to relate more to the people that are doing the performance, whether it's in Hollywood or whether it's in DC, if it was somebody you could relate to. Like, was your childhood a place where you grew up out in the country milking the cows, or were you out in Philadelphia, doing pickup games on the blacktop after school? How did you grow up? Were you one of the nerds? Were you one of the jocks? Were you one of the the loner outsiders? Things like that people relate to. And if they could relate to their politicians that way, the people making the laws, then when they come out and make statements, at least you can make a judgment value. Like, yeah, that person does understand me. I know where they came from, or holy cow, that person couldn't possibly relate to me. I think there's a value to that. I've listened to some other podcasts from people outside of politics that have really influenced me in the entertainment industry, in the science industry. Sorry to refer to science as an industry, but it kind of is these days. To hear where they came from and what drives them. And politics affects everybody, far more so than entertainment. And if you're going to be involved in the process, I think you'd like to know who you're talking to and who's talking to you.
Well, there you go. So it's every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. And so it's on 9 p.m. Eastern. And who are we going to have next week, just out of curiosity?
Well, we're not going to release that yet because there's currently a tie between three people whose communication directors are going back and forth and going, well, what night? Well, I don't know. Well, yeah, we would, but maybe not Tuesday. So we're settling that up over the weekend, and you're going to be the first one to know, and you can let everybody know sometime next week.
All right.
Right.
All right. Go ahead, Doug.
And then I was going to say, I think we'll definitely be on the air, the next 2 weeks. And then, probably the holidays, everybody, at least that we want to talk to is going to be scattering to the four winds, and we'll be back when Congress comes back in January.
Right. Christmas week and New Year's week, we're going to immediately go on hiatus after 2 more shows, and then we'll be back and probably on a pretty regular schedule, although the major holidays and everybody flees will probably take off too.
All right. Well, Jazz, Shaw, Doug Mataconis, thank you, gentlemen, for being on. Don't want to keep you all on any longer because I know that there's stuff that needs to be done. Actually, after all, it is Saturday night, and since I can't drink, y'all can. So
I think we're going to get to work on that right now, Taylor.
Well, then I'll just have to drink for 2 of us then.
Okay.
There we go.
Jazz Shaw, Doug Mataconis, thank you, gentlemen, very much. You can catch them on the Politi-Nerds radio show with Jazz Shaw and Doug Mataconis, Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. I am looking forward to that. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. We'll take a quick break, and when we get back, I'm going to delve into something that, well, a lot of people have been talking about recently, and that has to do with our good friends at Rolling Stone. So we'll get into that. This is Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. I'm your host, Taylor Millard. We'll be back right after this.
This is the Pint-Sized Pundit, and I am here to tell you that anything Taylor says on Saturday Night Cigar Lounge is his opinion and his opinion only. He does not speak for his employer. His